Hello and welcome to Caretaker's Corner. My name is CJ Young and I am here to try and offer you some good food for thought, I guess. We discuss everything here that has to do with taking care of your elderly and disabled parents, disabled spouses, and adult disabled children. I'm continuing this is a continuation of the series about things that I've learned during my caretaking time. Personal things that I've learned during my caretaking time. So we've covered finances, we've covered insurance, we've covered housing. So now let's talk about vehicles. If you're a caretaker of your elderly parents or a disabled spouse, then you know one of the hardest things to have to do is tell them they can't drive anymore. I know I've got a friend right now that's going through that with her father-in-law. And I know I don't have that situation with Barbara because she can't drive. She just never really did. So that's never an issue I've had with her. Now I know my dad, it was a big situation that's how I ended up with my dad. Apparently there was a huge disagreement over him being able to drive with his ex-wife, the way I'm understanding the way it went. And they wanted to pull his license and he wanted to continue to drive. Now, my dad drove until the day he died. He never had an accident. He never had an issue. So the question one of those questions you need to ask your own self is, at what time do you think that you will be able to quit driving? Will you be willing to give it up willingly? And I'm one of those people, I'm like, I know that I've had to help people make this decision. I've had to be the one to go, okay, we've hit that limit. Love my father-in-law to death. We had to pull the keys on him. He wrecked, I think it was like totaled 3 cars in a year. And the last accident he was in, he and his youngest daughter ended up at the hospital in the emergency room getting stitches and staples. And it was not good. And we had to pull his keys. And he cried for quite a while. And let me tell you, I cannot stand to see old people cry. I know. I'm a caretaker for old people. And I can't stand it. And he cried for like a good hour. Now with my mother-in-law, it wasn't that big of a deal. She goes, she was driving the van one day and goes, CJ, there's a problem with the brakes. And I drove the van the next day with everybody in it, and I kept slamming on the brakes and letting off and slamming on them. I had just changed the brakes on the van, so I knew they were fine. And after that, she was like, she just never drove again. You know, it was like, the brakes are okay. It's not the brakes, it's your feet. Because she was paraplegic, but she had some working in her legs that she could hit a brake and a gas pedal. But it got to the point where she couldn't even do that. And that's the point that she actually made the decision not to drive. We didn't actually have to pull the license with her. My mom doesn't drive anymore because she's had strokes. And the doctors just told her she couldn't drive. My stepdad still drives. So when it comes to vehicles, after retirement, obviously, hopefully this will work out for everybody, and this is one that is decades down the road. But you do have to think about your vehicle, not only about when you're gonna give up driving and how long can you drive. I know, like, for everybody, my dad and my stepdad also, they can't drive at night, or my dad couldn't drive at night. My stepdad doesn't drive at night. Because of the lights. I mean, I'm 50 and lights at night or when it's dark cause me a lot of problems. I have to slow down and make sure I'm over all the way, because I live on old country roads. The road I live on, the actual roads I live off of are like 1-lane roads that 2 cars have to go on in opposite directions. So in the dark, when lights are coming at me, I have to slow down, get all the way over, and let them basically go by. And my dad had that problem, and like I said, I know my stepdad does. So that's something you got to take into account. What kind of medication are you on? Is it medication that you shouldn't be driving on now, more or less later? So I bring this up because people, driving is secondhand. We're used to just going out and going wherever we want. And I know that one of the biggest issues that I have had is with vehicles when it comes to my elderly parents. And with my brother, who was disabled, vehicles were a big issue with him. When he passed away in an auto accident, but he couldn't walk, but he could drive short distances. So we always set it up so that there's a vehicle that he could get in and like go up to the store or whatever and come back, like drive through, whatnot. So a vehicle is an issue that just at any point in time in your life, you just don't think about it. But not only do you need to think about when you're going to quit driving, but once you retire, there's other, you got to think about how old is your vehicle? Do you need a new vehicle? How are you going to make that vehicle payment? Right now, vehicle payments are really flippin' expensive. We just had to get a new car, and it's a massive undertaking. Maintenance costs, right? You gotta pay for the the oil changes, the tires, air filters, all of that. It's something you have to pay for. And that's part of that monthly budget we were talking about. You need to be sure and budget every month for maintenance. Whether you do maintenance or not, make sure you budget that and put that in a separate area. So that way it builds on itself, and if you have a major repair, you've got that money for it. But you also have to look at, you have to pay for major repairs. You have to pay for your insurance. Are you not going to drive after a certain age? Are you going to give up your driving? If you live in a lot of retirement communities, they have buses and stuff that'll take you around. Do you have somebody locally that can drive you? I know, like in our area, there are, I think they're called TAC buses that will go around and pick up the elderly and take them to like doctor's appointments and stuff. I don't know if they take them shopping, but they do take them to like doctor's appointments. Can you afford to do a taxi or Uber, Lyft? You don't really think about how much driving saves you time and money until you can't drive or you don't have that ability. Do you have somebody that, like I said, that can drive for you? You can make arrangements on when they can drive you or not. Especially if you physically cannot drive, or if you are on medication where you shouldn't drive. I know it terrifies me knowing how much medicine people are on, and they're still out there driving, and I'm like, man, I couldn't take one of your pills and drive, more or less all of that. So that's something else you want to keep into account. Are you going to leave that decision to somebody else? I mean, depending upon your medical history or medical future, a doctor could end up pulling that. But do you want your family member to have to make that decision, or are you going to be better than those that you've had to deal with and make that decision yourself? Because number one, not having a vehicle does save money. And I hope that, and it saves on maintenance, the car payment, car insurance. And I'm hoping, like, for us, that's that's a decision that's decades away. I mean, I'm 50. I think everyone, like I said, I had a great aunt that drove well into her 90s. So I'm still looking at 40 some odd years down the road. But in my father-in-law and mother-in-law's case, they both had to quit driving in their mid-60s. So it changes per individual. So that's something else you want to look at. We live in very rural areas. So driving is, like, for me just to drive into work, it's 25 miles round trip. And just to go to the store is 10 miles. I mean, it's not like we can just hop in the car and jump down the street a couple miles and we'll be somewhere. We live rurally, so that's something else you want to take into account. If you live in a rural area, driving is a bigger issue, and transportation is a bigger issue. Are you in an area where you can get groceries delivered? You know, that will save on gas and everything. Are you in an area where you can get your medicine delivered? I know since COVID, a lot of that has changed, and you can get stuff delivered that you previously couldn't. So that driving and having a vehicle isn't as great of an issue. You can do a lot of your doctor's appointments and stuff through telehealth, which I think is the greatest thing on the planet. As to see a lot of specialists, we have to go to the big city, and if we can do a telehealth appointment, we can do it from the living room, and that saves hours. Because if we have to go to the city, it really does take hours out of our day. Sometimes as much as a half a day, not even counting getting ready for it, which takes the other half of the day. So these are some things that when it comes to your vehicles, you're going to want to keep in mind for retirement. I know I had one grandmother that there for a while in retirement, she got a new car every 5 or 6 years. And then once she got further into retirement, much later, she said she wished she hadn't done that. And she went down to, I think her last couple of cars were like 10, 15 years. Because of the car payments. And obviously the longer you can keep a vehicle, the better off it is for the car payment and maintenance part. Well, the maintenance part gets worse, but the car payment's less. So those are all questions. I mean, I'm not even sure what else would be going on with the vehicle, but those are all things that you do need to sit down and think about, and once again, write out a plan for. Look at what your parents and other people in your family that are of further along age, elderly, see what they've managed to do. How long were they able to go with driving? On Barb's dad's side, many of them drove until their 80s and 90s. On her mom's side, in all honesty, most of them died before they were 70. So, like I said, look at your genetics, look at the family members you have around you, and make a plan. Write it down. Give it to your children, so when it comes time for this decision to be made, they can hand you that piece of paper that says, hey, Mom, Dad, this is what you gave me for me to give it to you at just this time. So that way you can read, hey, dweeb, it's time for me to quit driving. This is my message to my future self. This is the point where we have to quit driving. You don't have to call yourself a dweeb. I do. Because on this subject, it's important. And it will be less stressful on you if you do that. I really do believe. So I hope this has been helpful. If there's anything else you need to, you think that you want me to discuss about this, I have at least one more video on this. There'll probably be more in the future, but I have one more that I have planned. So yeah, just drop me a note in the comments if there's something else you'd like me to talk about, or if there's something you'd like me to go in deeper detail on. Most of my videos, I just kind of scape over everything, do a quick rundown. But I can go in more in depth if that's what you all would like. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share, and I hope you have a truly wonderful week.